San Francisco Bay, the night of the 11th of June, 1962. A guard walks the tiers of Alcatraz, the most secure prison in America. He shines his torch into cell 138. A man lies sleeping, face turned to the wall. The guard moves on. The face on the pillow is made of soap, toothpaste, concrete dust, and toilet paper. The hair was swept from the barbershop floor. The man is already gone. By morning, 3 prisoners will have vanished from an island fortress that was built to be escape-proof. 64 years later, no one can prove whether they are dead or alive. Alcatraz was where America sent the men no other prison could hold. A rock in the middle of San Francisco Bay, ringed by water so cold it could kill a swimmer in under an hour, with currents strong enough to drag a body out to sea. In 29 years of operation, 36 men tried to escape. 23 were caught. 6 were shot. 2 drowned. Officially, no one ever made it. Then came these 3. Frank Lee Morris, inmate AZ-1441. Orphaned as a boy, first convicted at 13, and by his 30s a career burglar with an IQ of 133, higher than 98% of the population. He had already escaped from Louisiana State Penitentiary once. Alcatraz was where they sent him to make sure it never happened again. John and Clarence Anglin, inmates AZ-1476 and AZ-1485. 2 brothers from a family of 13 children in Donaldsonville, Georgia. Bank robbers who had pulled off a $19,000 heist with a toy gun. And crucially, strong swimmers, raised diving in the cold lakes of Michigan. And a 4th man, Allen West, a car thief in the cell beside Morris. Remember him. The plan began with a flaw in the fortress. At the back of each cell sat a small ventilation grill, 6 inches by 9. The concrete around it was old, cracked, and rotted by decades of salt air. Behind it lay an unguarded utility corridor. For 6 months, the 4 men dug. They used sharpened spoons stolen from the mess hall, discarded saw blades, and a drill improvised from the motor of a vacuum cleaner. Morris played his accordion during music hour to cover the noise. Each night they hid the widening holes behind painted cardboard, and each morning the guards walked past without a glance. Through the holes they climbed to the top of the cell block, and there, 30 feet above the guards' heads, they built a secret workshop. Inside it, an escape kit assembled entirely from a prison. More than 50 stolen raincoats, stitched by hand and sealed against steam pipes, became a rubber raft 6 feet by 14. The design came from an article in Popular Mechanics sitting on the shelves of the prison library. Plywood became paddles. A stolen concertina became a bellows to inflate the raft. And in their cells, the 4 dummy heads, painted with real hair, waiting for the night shift. On the 11th of June, 1962, just after lights out at 9:30, they went. Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers slipped through their vents within minutes. But in the 4th cell, something had gone wrong. Allen West had reinforced his crumbling vent with cement, and the cement had set hard. The hole it took him 6 months to dig had sealed itself shut. He clawed at it in the dark as the other 3 climbed without him. On the roof, they cracked open a ventilation shaft. The clang echoed through the prison. Guards heard it. No one went to look. They slid 50 feet down a kitchen vent pipe, climbed 2 barbed wire fences, and reached the northeast shore, a blind spot the searchlights could not touch. At 10 o'clock, they inflated the raft, pushed into the black water, and aimed for Angel Island, 2 miles across the bay. They were never seen again. At 7 the next morning, a guard reached into cell 138 and touched a head that was not a head. Alcatraz erupted. Within hours, one of the largest manhunts in American history surrounded the bay. Soldiers, Coast Guard cutters, helicopters, and the FBI, searching 10 days by air, sea, and land. What they found was this: a plywood paddle floating 200 yards off Angel Island, a wallet wrapped in plastic holding names, addresses, and photographs of the Anglin family, 2 life vests, one washed out past the Golden Gate, the other with its strings still knotted at the back, and nothing else. No raft, no bodies, no stolen clothes, no stolen car, no trace. The FBI's conclusion was simple. The water that night was around 10 degrees. The currents were ripping out to sea. The raft broke apart, the men drowned, and the Pacific took them. On the 31st of December, 1979, after 17 years, the Bureau closed its file. But the file refused to stay closed. 6 months after the escape, another Alcatraz inmate, John Paul Scott, proved the impossible. He swam the bay alone and reached the mainland alive. The following March, Alcatraz itself was shut down for good. Then the evidence began to surface. A report that a raft had been found on Angel Island the morning after the escape, with footprints leading away from it. A blue Chevrolet stolen in Marin County that same day. A motorist near Stockton forced off the road that night by 3 men in a blue Chevrolet. In 2003, television engineers built a raft from the same raincoat materials, launched it from Alcatraz, and made it across alive. In 2014, a Dutch university modeled the currents of that exact night and found a window. Leave at 11:30 and the tide carries you to safety, and any debris drifts towards Angel Island, precisely where the paddle was found. And the Anglin family kept receiving things. A Christmas card in 1962, in handwriting the family swore was John's. Flowers delivered anonymously every Mother's Day until their mother died in 1973. At her funeral, 2 strangers in heavy makeup, believed by the family to be the brothers in disguise. In 2015, the family produced a photograph taken in Brazil in 1975 of 2 men on a farm. Forensic experts hired by the family said the men were more than likely John and Clarence Anglin. A former U.S. Marshal called it the best actionable lead in 50 years. Then, in 2013, a letter arrived at a San Francisco police station. "My name is John Anglin. I escaped from Alcatraz in June 1962. I'm 83 years old and in bad shape. I have cancer." The letter offered a deal: medical treatment in exchange for surrender. It claimed Frank Morris had died in 2008 and Clarence in 2011. The FBI tested the handwriting, the fingerprints, the DNA. The results came back inconclusive. The writer was never found.
The U.S. Marshals Service keeps the case open to this day. The arrest warrants for Frank Morris, John Anglin, and Clarence Anglin remain active until each man would turn 100 years old. The first of those warrants expires in September 2026. So weigh the 2 stories against the evidence. The drowning theory rests on silence. No verified sighting in 64 years, no fingerprint, no DNA, no confirmed crime committed by 3 men who would have needed money. That silence is heavy, but the theory has a hole at its center. The bay gave back the paddle, the wallet, and the life vests. It never gave back the raft, and it never gave back a single body. Of the 2 men known to have drowned escaping Alcatraz, both were recovered. These three simply vanished. And the strongest evidence is not a family photograph or an anonymous letter. It is the tide itself. The Dutch current study found only one launch window where escape was survivable, and that same window predicts the debris would wash up off Angel Island. That is exactly where the paddle and the wallet were found. The physics of the bay, run 40 years later by scientists with no stake in the legend, lands on the timeline where the men live. The crossing was survivable. It was proven by a lone swimmer 6 months later and proven again by every recreation since. The real mystery is not whether three men could beat the water. It is how three of America's most wanted faces stayed invisible for the rest of their lives. 64 years, 3 men, 1 raft made of raincoats, and not a single body ever found. Did the bay take them that night? Or did 3 men paddle into the dark and simply never stop running? Every case has a code. Some are still uncracked.